Thank you. Good evening. All right, we got about 3 people in the room. I said good evening. Good evening. There we go. First and foremost, it's a privilege and an honor to work and serve with these young men. It is absolutely the culmination of all the things that I've studied and worked on throughout my life. And so I say 3 words to you, the scholars. I appreciate y'all. Secondly, I'd obviously like to thank the foundation for the work that they're doing and for bringing me in to be able to play a role in this great work. And of course, my partner in crime, Carolyn Jones, back there, who, yes, please give her a round of applause. Who I jokingly say, but it's actually true, if anyone has an iPhone, you have this thing called favorites. It's the new speed dial. And about 3 months ago, I started taking friends out of my favorites, and I had to add Carolyn into it because we talk so much. So thank you for everything that you do. In this abbreviated talk tonight, I want you to think about the question up on the board. And it's a simple question, and it goes like this: would you follow you? And I'm not talking about on Twitter or Instagram. I want to know, as you think about the people that you lead, would you follow yourself? And perhaps you're on a team. Would you want to be your teammate? If we were on the playground back in the day and they picked captains and they started choosing people, are you going to be the last person to be chosen? And as I think about my work, I think about these terms: leaders, cultural intelligence. I do a ton of work in bias, and I think of them as theory. And the thing about theory is theory makes a whole lot of sense in theory. Y'all caught that? And then people get involved and we mess it up. So what we want to do in everything that we talk about when we're thinking about theory is we want to make it practical and personal. Because if we don't, it gives us an excuse not to do anything with it. It just stays in the theoretical realm. And I'm going to pause for a minute because I see a lot of university presidents in here. And I want everybody, if you are able and you're a university president, just to wave your hand. Let's give them a round of applause. So here is the first way that I like to make things practical and personal. I think about my university newspaper, or perhaps it's the Tommy Bulletin or the Minnesota Daily, world-renowned, student-led Minnesota Daily at the University of Minnesota. Anyone world-renowned? That was a joke. It's not world-renowned. So I like to pretend that they're going to do a story about the life and times of Abdul Omari. And they print 4 days a week, and it's going to be printed smack dab above the fold on the front page. And here's some of the questions that I think about. If I wrote a story, what would the headlines be? What events have held the most learning for me? And then this most important question at the bottom: how do my headlines play out at work? How do they play out in your volunteer and civic work? How do they play out in your groups and teams? And here would be the first headline: the 30,000 students, when they wake up, before they put on their Lululemon pants and Ugg boots, they're going to read about the life and times of Abdul Omari. And the first headline would go something like this. It would read, "Can you say confused?" The picture would look like my Bitmoji that's up there on the board. Looks just like me, right? Spent a lot of time on that. It ain't easy. And I'd be going, here's why. My pop is from Kenya in East Africa. My mommy, she's from Jordan in the Middle East. My pop is Muslim. My mommy is Greek Orthodox Christian. My name's Abdul Majid, raised in South Minneapolis in the 80s and 90s. I thought that my cousin was my brother until I was 10. I thought that my cousin was my brother until I was 10. Then I found out we didn't even have any blood relation. But you try to tell me he's not my cousin, we're going to have a problem, because that's my cousin. And I remember leaving high school my sophomore year at South High School. I left high school in June, and I came back in September. And some of y'all will remember this. You could literally see the influx of East Africans in my high school. And so I had these conversations with people, and they'd be like, "Yo, where you from, man?" Like, "I'm from Kenya." "Nah, man, you're Somali." Didn't pay no mind to it. Next day, same thing. "Yo, where you from?" "My pop's from Kenya." They'd be like, "Stop denying your roots. You're from Somalia." So I went home one day. I said, "Hey, Pop, are you sure we're not from Somalia?" He said, "Nah, bruh, we're Kenyan." And I'd come home. When I turned 16, I got my first car. It was a 1982 Honda Accord hatchback with 345,000 miles on it. Got it from my uncle, who's not really my uncle. And my pop was a real social cat, right? So I come in the house and there'd be somebody new all the time. And when you're 16 and you got a car, you got nowhere to go, but gas is $1.09, what do? You just drive. So I come home, new car outside. Who does he have over today? I'd walk in the door. Hi, my name's Abdul. Good to meet you. You are? He said, that's John, your uncle. I ain't asked no questions. Come home the next day, same thing. That's Pei, your aunt. So now I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, John is a white man. Pei is from China. I thought I was Kenyan and Jordanian. How is this my aunt and uncle? I grew up confused. But then I come back to this most important question at the bottom here, and I did the one thing that no one should do in a PhD program. Third year of my PhD program, I started a business. And the goal of my business is quite simple. It's to help people better connect, first with themselves and then with other people. And the fact that I grew up confused trying to figure out who this young man named Abdul Majid, born to immigrant parents in a mixed religious household growing up in Minnesota was, is how I do that every single day. And that is exactly what we try to do with these young men. We try to get them to connect with themselves and place themselves constantly in the conversation, because otherwise the theory stays theoretical and it stays in the stratosphere. Now, I recognize that as y'all are thinking about your headlines, I've biased your headlines already. I do tons of work in bias. Y'all are all thinking in terms of identity. But here's the thing. Your headline could be anything. It could be a saying that a parent or guardian used to say to you. It could be something you read in a scripture book. It could be a poem, a song, an event. A close second of mine is something that my pop used to say, because he was one of those cats that when he looked at you, you just started crying. You feel me, Mr. Mayor? I know you feel me, right? He had them eyes. He'd look at you and you start crying and ain't nothing happened yet. And he used to say that thing. You want a reason to cry? Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Right? That's a close one for me. Because what that meant was you better stop crying or you're really going to catch a whooping. Right? And I think about that now and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so busy. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. The world is crashing down. And then I stop for a minute and I say, look, I'm in front of all you fine people today. I was in Belize and Dominican Republic last week. What I got to complain about? You want a reason to cry? I'll give you a reason to cry. So before y'all go to bed, because I know you're going to be thinking about this content every night before you go to bed from here on out, I want you to think about what would those headlines be for you. And when we think about answering this question, would you follow you? Rath and Conchi did a study for Gallup, and they asked this very open-ended question, and this is why I love the study. They asked this question of 13,000 people. They said, if you were to follow a good leader, what would you require from them? They didn't give any options. They didn't give a list of 20 to choose from. They just said, what would you want? And the four most common answers are what you see on the board here. I'll read them to you in case you're like me and haven't been able to get LASIK. I actually did get LASIK. Trust, hope, stability, and compassion. Trust, hope, stability, and compassion. And I want you to think about this in terms of your teammates, in terms of the people that you lead, or in terms of the people that you want to follow. Do you receive these things? Do you give those things? And I want you to think of it in terms of the pie being 100%. And the reality is, at no given point are these split 25, 25, 25. Did I say 3 or 4? I think I missed one. 25. But what happens is it's all about context. And they're more swinging on a pendulum. And depending on what's happening at any given moment, you might need to pull on one of these more than another one. And so when I'm dealing and having conversations with students who are on academic probation, and they're saying, Abdul, I'm trying hard, but for some reason it's not clicking. I have to pull on these 4 basic needs of a follower and decide which one of those makes more sense in that context. Hopefully the trust has already been established. And if the compassion is there in the beginning, perhaps what I'm trying to do and pull on more than anything else is stability. Because when we think about what young men are going through, particularly these young men that we're talking about in their lives and in higher education, many of them have never had stability. And when they're navigating a space that no one can help them with from their families, and no one has experienced it before them, they're lacking stability. And we do this in all kinds of ways. We do it by creating plans. We do it by listening. I want to hit on listening real quick. I do work in mentoring. I do work in leadership. I do work in equity. And people come up to me all the time and they say, Abdul, what's the number one piece of advice you would give a good leader and a good mentor? It's very simple. Shut up and listen. Shut up and listen. And eventually you can act, but you don't need to act right away. I think about how different cultures and people actually might look at this list and say, you know what, dudes? I don't need hope from you. I'm good on that one. And am I a leader that's agile enough to say, you know what? Okay, cool. If you don't need hope from me, you have it from somewhere else, that's fine. Well, let's work with the other three and see what you might need. And that's how we want to be using the 4 basic needs of a follower and answering the question every single day, would you follow you? Would you want to work with you? Would you hire you? And I know sometimes, depending on the day, I answer that question. I say, heck yeah, I'd follow me. And there are other days when I'm like, man, I would not follow you, bruh. Let me leave you with this. I don't even know how much time I've gone, but let me leave you with this. Anybody know the get on the balcony metaphor, Heifetz and Linsky? Raise your hand if you're able. All right, good, good. I love this metaphor. Anyone know where that picture is? Lauren Pasta Bar. If I had something to throw out there, I'd throw it at you, but I ain't got nothing. Lauren Pasta Bar. So before my brother passed away, he was a Latin DJ. And he would DJ at the Lauren Pasta Bar. So you can imagine a Friday night, the lights are off, no one's getting married. There's not chairs on the dance floor. And what most people don't know about me is that I was a bartender for 9 years, all the way through undergrad, master's, PhD, and a year after I graduated from my PhD. And I bartended at the Varsity Theater, which is right down the street, and it used to be owned by the same owner. And so I get off of work, and I want to go say what's up to my brother, have an adult beverage, and cool out. But I couldn't dance. I know, y'all shocked, right? Look like I got some rhythm, but I don't. And so what I would do is I would come to the Lauren Pasta Bar when I get off of work, and I'd sneak in the valet door, which is at the bottom of that picture there, and I would make my way to the bar, grab a drink, and I'd go up to the balcony. And the thing about that balcony is it wraps all the way around the dance floor. So you can see the whole dance floor when you get up there. And so I'd come in the valet door, and my number one goal was not to get in anyone's way. Because the dance floor was filled with 600 people, and they were doing some of the most amazing dances I had ever seen. I mean, they're moving so smoothly. They're spinning people. Some people are so good, they're spinning 2 people at one time. I'd have just fallen over. I wasn't ready. And so I would navigate my way through what looked like 600 people who had practiced one single dance and were doing it all at the same time, in unison. And I make my way up to the balcony. And when I got up to the balcony, I saw something completely different. What I thought was this 600-person choreographed dance was not that at all. I looked over here, and I saw somebody in the corner plugging their ear because the music was too loud. I looked over there, and I saw a couple in an all-out argument just going at it. I saw some people who were like me, they don't have rhythm, so they didn't dance at all. They just sat in the back with their leg up on the wall. And then I noticed that some people only dance to bachata, some only dance to merengue, some only dance to reggaeton. And what I thought was this wonderful dance of everybody moving together was actually a packed dance floor, and really they were just trying not to hit each other, and it looked more like this, right? Which is kind of how I dance. And so what we want to be doing as leaders, what we want to be doing as mentors, what we want to be doing as teammates is we want to be toggling back and forth from the dance floor and the balcony. Because for most of us, we can only do one. We're either in it and we're constantly engaged, or we shut down and we back out. But really, we want to be going back and forth because we want to be in the dance floor and in the action, and then we want to stop and look and see what's happening. Whose voices are missing from the table? Who's speaking too much? What student has shut down? And why? And then we want to reemerge into the dance floor so that we can continue to be engaged and active and participative. We want to toggle back and forth from the balcony and the dance floor in our leadership, in our teamwork, in our mentoring, in our days, and in our lives. And I'm pretty sure that I'm close to 15 minutes. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate your time. Have a good evening.